Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And if you've ever wanted to learn how to shine when it comes to protecting yourself and your assets, then guess what? Today's conversation is the one that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. And you're going to know why in just a second. But here we go. Because today's guest not only started his own company at the ripe age of 14 as a lawn service, and I'm really hoping he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. Listen, this guy spent 13 years teaching third and fourth graders. So, I mean, it's going to be amazing what he's going to talk to us to about today. And then at a certain point, he decided to pivot and start his own independent agency. And you know what? Today, he is on a mission to help people change the way that they feel about insurance. He also has the largest independent insurance agency following on all of YouTube. Isn't that amazing? That's just great. He is the host of the R.E.I. Clarity podcast, and he is the owner of Shine Insurance Agency. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Jeremy Goodrich. Jeremy, welcome to the show, man.
Billy, I'm so excited to be here. That was a wonderful introduction. Wow. I mean, that sounds like a lot of cool things going on. I hope that I can expand on a little bit of that and help your audience to really see what my story looks like and how they can take their story forward and make insurance a little bit interesting at the same time. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you're going to make it a lot interesting. I'm absolutely positive. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. And as I mentioned before, I know you're going to help to educate us on an area that some of us, or many of us, actually don't know a lot about. So it's going to be awesome. But as you know, Jeremy, everybody gets the same 5 questions, man. So I'm going to ask you 2 now, and then we'll get into the Going Long final 3 at the end. And so the very first thing is help the Going Long family understand, where exactly do you live in the U.S.?
Absolutely. So I am in Bloomington, Indiana, which is right in the Midwest of the United States, about an hour south of Indianapolis, Indiana. In fact, I spent a lot of my high school time in Indianapolis, Indiana, so I know that area really well. So I am dead in the center of the Midwest of the United States.
All right, fantastic. And I almost went to Indiana for university and back in the day, but I think we've talked about that, or we'll talk about that later. So Also, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours, Jeremy?
So I post on LinkedIn every day, and it's just one of the things that I do. I enjoy it. In fact, when I wake up in the morning, I used to wake up in the morning, I go and work out. I have sort of a regiment and things like that. But one of the pieces was like, take some time to just sit down, and I would scroll like Facebook and social media and end up kind of wasting a half an hour of my time. And I looked at that and I was like, how can I fix that? How can I address that even and keep the same basic feeling? I liked the fact that I was taking a moment in the morning for myself and doing my own thing. And so I started posting I was like, well, let's just make a post every morning. Instead of scrolling, let's be the one putting things out there. And in the last 24 hours, a couple of posts I've had have really created this engagement around how to build your team, whether you're a passive investor looking to, find those right sponsors, find those people to invest with, or whether you're a sponsor, a general partner, how to find the right people to make sure that your business model moves forward and your plan happens the way you want it to. Like, how do you build that team? How do you find those people? And just really great conversation around that from some of my heroes and people who, when I see them commenting in my posts, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. It's such a great thing to be able to engage with folks. You're one of those people, Billy. And I just have had that happening in the last 24 hours and really enjoyed it and appreciated it.
Fantastic. So what I love about what you just said, just the positivity is, number one, you've gone from just, waking up in the morning and scrolling through to, which is some would say was very reactive to very much being out. Like, how can you go out and add value to others and be the content creator and really get the conversation going? And then when you get the results of other people chiming in, that's always a great thing, because then you are creating community and creating engagement. Love that. So listen, man, let's jump into the conversation. Like, I know I gave a couple of really, really high level things about your life and a little bit about your backstory, but would love for you, Jeremy, to share with the Going Long family today a bit more about your backstory in your own words, please.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you hit on the two things that I identify with most as a human. One is being an entrepreneur, someone who owns my own business, who has always kind of driven my own vision forward, and being a teacher. I spent 13 years as an elementary school teacher, as you described, and I loved doing that. I loved third and fourth grade because I wasn't teaching kids how to do something. That's sort of kindergarten through second grade. I was teaching kids how to love doing something. Like I wasn't teaching them how to write. I was teaching them how to be a good author. I wasn't teaching them how to read. I was teaching them how to love a wonderful book, and so on and so forth. Even math, which was one of the specialties that I had, I wasn't teaching them how to add. I was teaching them how to run a business. We had multiple projects that we did every year that the kids loved, where we were building these imaginary businesses in these crazy worlds. And Billy, some of the businesses they would come up with, they like sold solar systems or sold, unicorns and different kinds of, like they had to specify what their business did, but it didn't have to be real. And then they bought from each other and created these worlds of things purchased from other members of our classroom. And it just created this insanely cool world. I was teaching kids to love numbers, to love business ownership. And I feel like that is my story. Like, it's how do I take something that is maybe not particularly interesting or the center of someone's idea of what success looks like, and show folks why it's important to your life and how you can make it interesting. Now, insurance is a little bit harder to do that than, selling unicorns and solar systems, but, it's in that similar space.
And I love that, man. So that I don't know did you want to add on to anything else there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I started the insurance agency, obviously, and that's what we're doing right now. My wife is my business partner. We've been doing that for 8 years, and we focus on commercial real estate. We do have a personal insurance side where we have a team that works over in that vertical. But on the business insurance side, all we do is commercial real estate across the United States. That's our 100% focus. And so that's been going great, and we've been enjoying that.
All right. So that's awesome. And, you never know. You may also be helping us to learn how to sell unicorns and buy in different currencies that we're creating and all that kind of stuff during today's conversation.
Absolutely.
So I love that you just mentioned that you really were helping your third and fourth graders learn how to love something, right? And so I'm just curious, before we go forward, if you could take a step back in time, help us understand, what do you believe is your genesis, or was your genesis, for really finding that focus on recognizing that it's teaching others how to love something versus how to do something?
I think, like a lot of us, sports, if we played sports as a kid, it created a strong foundation for who we are now. And I think that's where I learned to love teaching. I was a goalkeeper on the soccer team. I was the catcher on the baseball team. I always sort of played this anchor role. Not that I was all that, good. It wasn't about skill necessarily. It was like the position that I played tend to be, similar to a coach or in that kind of space. I was running the defense. For those of your listeners that are, love soccer, love European football, that the goalkeeper, while it doesn't necessarily look like it, is talking to the defense the whole time. They're very much in charge of that back line and how things work. And that was the role that I played. So I became a coach at that time, and then started coaching soccer and things like that, even as I was, becoming a teacher. I guess I just always sort of played that role of, I can bring people together. I can explain things in a simple way. I mean, I don't know where that skill comes from exactly, but that's always been the case. And that has always worked. So teaching just came naturally from there.
Okay, and that really is helpful to understand that. And really, as a goalkeeper, you really are watching. You're seeing everything. You're recognizing where the talent is, where the opportunities are, where the threats are coming from, and then you're able to translate that really quickly so that you help to set the team, which I think is one of the things as we project forward in terms of what you are able to do or how your company is able to help others recognize where are the opportunities, where are the threats, and you're able to also help them to set the right formation as it relates to what you're doing in your business and from an insurance perspective. So if you would allow me, Jeremy, this is a topic that we've never really had the opportunity to talk about before, and I believe that it is a topic that is extremely important for anyone who is looking to invest, whether actively as well as passively, right? Because this is something that is about being able to protect your potential investment. So could you make it like, I know that you talked about how to love things, but if you could go back maybe to even like a first grade level and just help everyone understand, like, what is the role of insurance as it relates to real estate investments? And maybe what are some of the things that we should be looking for? And then we'll go from there.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, insurance is what levels the playing field when it comes to real estate investing. Without insurance, the only people who would be able to invest would be the wealthiest among us, those who feel they have $10 million to invest in an apartment complex. And if that place goes down or something bad happens, that it wouldn't crash them financially. And so without insurance at the foundation, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So it provides security and safety, right? It creates that feeling, or not just a feeling, it creates the ability to invest in real estate with the knowledge that if the worst things happen, something really bad happens, that you've passed some of that risk that you're taking on to someone else. And certainly when it comes to multifamily investing, there's a lot of risk. And if you imagined it without insurance, there's infinitely more risk. Suddenly, everything is a huge risk and a potential to take the entire thing down. So if you're looking at it from someone who's running a deal, that feels very scary. If you're looking at it from a passive investor's perspective, you're handing your money over to someone else. And without insurance, certainly there would be no security at all for that money. And so I think at the most basic level, insurance levels the playing field and passes the risk on to someone else for the worst things that happen or could potentially happen in our investing journey.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. So the being able to have that foundational level of risk mitigation in the event that something were to happen, then at least that is the area, or that this is the vehicle that will help us to level the playing field. And it actually allows real estate, multifamily real estate, to become accessible, right, to many, many people, that are not 10 millionaires, if you will.
Yeah. I think that's something that we don't talk. Insurance has this sort of ugly persona or perspective, or the things that we see about it. And a lot of those things are legitimate. And maybe we'll talk about some of that in this conversation. I'm totally happy to. But I think it's good to frame from the bottom. What is it? What is the true essence of what it is we're talking about here? And that is something that levels the playing field and passes the risk on to other people.
Perfect. So we've got the foundational level, everybody, going along, family. And so now let's start to build, because we're going to love insurance, because you're going to teach us how to love insurance.
I love it. Yeah.
Done. So because this is something that may be new for a lot of people, like talk to us about what are some of the different types of insurance that we want to be aware of that can help to level the playing field as it relates to these multifamily investments.
I think for passive investors, obviously, you're not getting into the weeds of insurance policies in the same way as an active investor, right? So from your perspective, you want to make sure that the property is protected at a high level so that you know that your money is not going, there's not going to be a cap call or worse if some bad thing happens, right? So I think the biggest thing you want to know as a passive investor is, do we have some basic coverages there? So having some knowledge of insurance is important. And I think, and Billy, maybe you can add on this, but I think the hardest part is, do I ask my sponsor to be able to see a policy itself? Do I ask to be able to see that? Because I think that can feel like anytime we're asking a sponsor or a syndicator to give us more information, it's just one more question. It's one more thing. It needs to have value. But if I'm a passive investor, I do want to see that document. And I want to see two basic things. One, that the property coverage essentially covers the replacement cost of the building. So without getting in the weeds, if you've got a 10,000 square foot building in the Midwest, it's probably going to cost about $100, $125 a square foot to rebuild. Do we have $1 million of coverage on the policy? If we've got somewhere close, okay, we've done a good job of covering that building. And if it were to go down, there's coverage in the policy to replace it. And we're not going to have to pay for that out of our pockets as investors. So that's number one, is the property coverage. But the thing I think is more important is the liability coverage. All of us understand liability, especially if we're coming from the perspective of having run businesses or having personal financial assets. All your insurance advisors are talking about liability. What happens if something bad happens to someone else because of you, and they hire a personal injury attorney or something like that, right? I think those are the worst case scenarios. And we protect ourselves personally, or at least we should, with our insurance policies. And so we want to make sure that if we're investing in deals that have done the same. So you want to see, liability coverage that's a few $1,000,000, or if it's a huge complex, that it's $10 million. So making sure the property coverage is right and making sure the liability coverage is right is a really basic look at the fact that your sponsors, your syndication team, has put together an insurance policy that is going to do what it's supposed to do when something bad happens.
And so, love that, and it's having that in place in the unlikely event that something were to go wrong. At least you know that it's there. I will build on what you said before in terms of if you're asking for certain documentation, it is. It depends on if you really want to work with that sponsor or not, if that's part of their policy, yes or no. Typically, it should be. There's nothing that's in those documents that you can't, depending on the type of syndication, but you always need to be able to get the information that you need and be able to verify that information. That is absolutely key to be able to do that. And I love that you gave us two examples. When we're looking at the types of insurance, I think it's for a lot of people, it would make a lot of sense when you're looking at the property, because you just did the math. You said if it's X amount of square feet by X amount per square foot, it's $2 million or $1.5 million. The other side, just maybe you could help us a little bit navigate this, because this seems much more abstract when you're talking about liability. How is someone supposed to know it $2 million of coverage versus $20 million of coverage is correct?
That's a great question. And you're right, it is a little bit more abstract because you just don't know what you're going to get sued for, right? And so I think that what I tend to advise, high net worth individuals is insure to your net worth. So if your net worth is $10 million, then maybe you need to consider having $10 million of liability coverage. Now, as that number gets higher, I think the argument against, if you have $100 million in assets, should you have a $100 million liability umbrella? Well, that doesn't really exist in personal insurance, so maybe not. But certainly one rule of thumb is insure to the value of your assets. And so in multifamily investing, the value of that LLC's assets is the buildings, right? Is the property that is owned. So if you look at the market value in this case of the assets, and it's $2.5 million, then $3 million of liability coverage makes sense. You've covered the essential assets, and there's nerdy in the weeds attorney reasons for making those two things align. But I think that if you need a benchmark when it comes to liability coverage, look at the asset base and say, are we protecting that entire asset base? Now, if you've got a $50 million deal, you're not likely to have a $50 million umbrella again. When the number gets higher, it starts to adjust a little bit whether you can do that or not. But at those lower numbers, at $2, $3, $4 million, use that benchmark of are we protecting the asset that we have?
Okay. So being able to protect the asset is something that you want to make sure that you can do from the liability perspective. And you used a word that I think a lot of people have heard before, but they don't dare ask the question. But I guess since this is kind of my show, I can ask whatever question
I love it. I'm ready.
Right? Yeah. So help us understand. When you mentioned umbrella, when you say umbrella, what exactly is that, and what does it actually cover? Or potentially cover?
Question. So many people are confused by this. So an umbrella is just additional liability coverage. Again, liability coverage is coverage for bad things that happen to other people because of you or your property. Someone slipped down the stairs, a back deck fell, and people were injured. I'm dealing with one right now where a tenant slipped on ice in the parking lot and broke a wrist. Not a big deal. It's going to be fine, but that is bad things that happen to other people. So you have liability coverage on your standard insurance policy. It's usually $1 million. If you want more, if you want additional liability coverage above and beyond that, worst case scenario happens and a personal injury attorney is suing you for $2 million. Well, that $1 million on your main policy is going to run out. So what happens next? What happens next is the umbrella insurance policy, additional liability coverage for worst case scenarios. It comes in millions. So it could be 1 million, it could be 3 million, it could be 10 million. Generally, the highest you'll see is a $25 million liability umbrella. That tends to be for the largest properties. It can go up from there, but generally 25 million is the biggest umbrella you'll see. But it's simply additional liability coverage above and beyond what you have on your primary policy.
Okay. And then I guess most people would say, first of all, thank you for explaining that to so many people that are like, oh my God, I'm glad he answered that question. I'm falling in love with insurance.
I'm glad you asked it.
I'm falling in love with insurance. So I guess some people would say, well, yeah, Jeremy, that makes a lot of sense. But if I could get 25 million in the liability policy, why would I then get another 25 million in an umbrella? Or wouldn't I just put 25 million in the liability?
So the liability on the main policy usually maxes out or at 1 or 2 million. So that primary company is saying, we're willing to take on the risk of having to pay out $1 million, but that's all the risk we're willing to take on. If it gets bigger than that, we're out. We're not interested in taking that much risk on. And so the umbrella company says, well, we'll take on the extra risk, obviously, for premium that you pay. So the primary policy can't go up to 25 million. It can only go up to like 1 million. Some of them go up to 2 million, but that's where it stops. And since those primary companies won't take on that risk, another insurance company has to come in and say, hey, I'll take on the rest. And that's where umbrellas come in.
Fantastic. And so I'm sure I just heard so many people going, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you just explained that. Because a lot of times we don't necessarily hear or understand that. And so the fact that you are helping us to understand that within the initial policy, there is an additional supply chain in terms of insurance coverages that are willing to take on higher risk or more risk in terms of a dollar value. And they do that at a premium in exchange for a premium. And so that really helps to provide an active investor to have the coverage that's going to be appropriate for their situation. And it gives also to the passive investor the opportunity to ask the types of questions and better understand. When you start hearing that there's an umbrella, you realize that, okay, we're moving into higher value type of opportunity. So thank you so much for clarifying that for so many of us.
Yeah, like I just to finish that conversation out, if you asked to see documents, you could see that primary liability coverage and see $1 million, and you're investing in a $50 million deal, and you say, wait a minute, why are we so underinsured? And the answer may be it's over on the umbrella. Just, you got to dig a little bit further to see that additional liability coverage.
And also for the Going Long family, you will know to ask that question right away because Jeremy's helping us to fall in love with insurance, which is just awesome. So fantastic. And I think that having those concrete examples really helps us to understand the concepts, Jeremy. So I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And I read this interesting statistic. I don't know where, and you can maybe tell us where I read this statistic, that 80% of real estate investors that have insurance that fails them when they need it the most.
Absolutely.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So tell us why that is and what in the world can we do to be in the 20% that it doesn't fail on?
So that statistic is, I have that all over. And a big part of that is because I review insurance policies every day. So folks, when they come to us, one of the things we do is say, hey, we'll send over what you have right now. We'll do an assessment of what you're working with, give you a simple description of what we see, and we can take it from there. And 4 out of 5, at least, I mean, sometimes I feel like that number is low, have just these huge gaps in the coverage. And it is kind of scary. When I look at it, I was looking at one yesterday. I was sharing it with my team because it was so problematic in so many ways, and this investor just didn't know it. When I look at those, I think about how we can fix it. And so the biggest way, well, you asked 2 questions. One is the reason it's that way. If I'm the listener right now, I'm saying, why is it that way and how can I fix it, right? So I guess let's start with why is it that way? It's that way because people don't understand insurance. It comes back to this fear, this idea that we're scared of insurance. We don't know what it is. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go out and find the cheapest price. And when we go searching for the cheapest price, what we get is the worst insurance policy. When we're talking about large multifamily complexes, the money involved for everyone, every service team member, the general partner team, and the passive investor team, we're all making money off of this. And there's money to be made. And that is true for insurance agents as well. When they hear an opportunity to offer a proposal for one of these complexes, they see the dollar signs. And if they know that the person making the decision is making the decision based on the cheapest price, that's what they're going to show that person. And in so doing, they create insurance policies that actually have very little coverage. In the weeds of insurance, there are lots of ways to create scenarios where a $500,000 claim gets paid out at $150,000, $200,000, and the property owner has to deal with that extra few $100,000. Happens all the time. And the big problem, the big reason is because at the very beginning, the person buying the insurance was 100% price motivated, and the insurance agent was licking their chops based on that and just stripped down all the coverage to sell them what they wanted. So that's the reason why. It's an easy thing to solve, though. so that's good.
Please tell us.
I think that if you're working with insurance advisors who are out to be on your team, out to make your investing team better, maybe invested in your project. I mean, what better way to know that the service team members are motivated to succeed in a project than they're invested in the project themselves? But, it's about trust. So many things are about relationships in this business, and this is a huge one of them. Because if you come to me and say, I want the cheapest price, I say, I'm not the right person for you. It's not that I don't have the best pricing in the industry, because I do. But I don't work on a cheapest price basis because I don't want that claim to go down the way I did. So it's all about establishing that relationship with someone you trust. Some of the investors that I know and respect the most have one insurance advisor. They've had that person for 20 years. They go, when they buy a new complex, they let that person know and say, get me the best deal you can, make the coverage right. Let me know what the bottom line is so I can pencil it or, underwrite it or whatever into the mix. And so the solution to that problem is, rather than going out and looking for the cheapest price, going out and looking for the best advisor. And there are lots of good insurance advisors. There are lots of people who are not going to do what I just described policy. But those people usually will say no to someone who's looking for the cheapest price.
So that makes a lot of sense. So why does it happen? As you mentioned, because they're typically people that are going to be focused, or companies that are focused on just a price and get the cheapest price. And it's a really easy thing to fix, just to find the right person. So one of the things that I loved about what you just said is, and I'm going to summarize here a little bit, but when you're looking to add to your team, and you're not just looking to have a transaction, right? The transaction is how can I get the cheapest price, get this done quickly? And the other is, how do I engage this person or this company to become an active member of my team? And so I want you to, if you can help us to understand both from, I think this is an active and passive investor thing, right? But because most people don't know how to engage with someone that is in the insurance game. And so you clearly do, because you are there and you're helping people. You have been helping people. So can you talk us through what you believe is the best way to engage, or to search out, to engage, and to then create that relationship that is more of a relationship versus a transaction with someone as an insurance advisor?
Absolutely. So I think from the passive investor, before I directly answer your question, from the passive investor perspective, what you're asking your sponsors, your syndicators, your operators is, how do you build your service team and what does that group of people look like? You want to hear how they choose their lender. You want to hear how they choose their insurance advisor. You want to hear, almost most importantly, how they're choosing their property managers. So the question from passive investor to active team of, how do you pick your service team and what does that team look like, I think answers this question for the passive investor. For the active investor, what you're looking for when you're going out to look for an insurance advisor is the same thing you're looking for when you're looking for a property manager or an accountant or a lawyer. You're wanting potentially referrals. I mean, that's almost the best way, right? Someone else who can say, this person has taken great care of me. And if that person says, this person got me the cheapest price, again, like, you may want to just like dig a little bit deeper. Not that we can't find the cheapest, a good quality price, but want to know more. So referrals are a great way to do it. Is this person a commercial real estate expert? Are they a specialist? Do they do this? I do it 100%, but lots of insurance advisors do it as they have a couple of specialties, and that's perfectly fine, and then can they explain what they're offering to you in a simple, clear, easy to understand way? If you're going to protect millions of dollars in your financial investment and other people's financial investments with the relationship with this insurance advisor, you should expect that you can have a 15-minute conversation and walk away smarter about insurance than you were when you got on the phone. I hear so many people when they come to me say, man, every time I ask my insurance advisor a question, I walk away feeling dumber than I did when I got on the horn. And I think that is a sign that you've got the wrong person. Sure, you could learn an insurance policy, study insurance policy. We have on our website simple, complete guides to commercial real estate insurance that can help you to know the product better. And that's a totally good thing to do. But ultimately, there's going to have to be some trust at some point. And so vetting the person in the same way that passive investors vet syndicators and every other member of our team we're vetting is the answer to that question.
So I love how you brought it back full circle, helping both passive as well as actives to understand really the process. Number one, one of the things that you mentioned, and I want the entire Going Long family to go to Jeremy's website. It is a wealth of information. It is simple. It is very educational. It is a website that also, aside from those things, which are fantastic, it's just a pleasure to be there. So Jeremy, and I know we're going to do this at the end, but just really quickly, because I want everybody to go to Jeremy's website. Well, Jeremy, can you tell us what your website is, where they can go find all this wonderful information and simple process?
Oh yeah, shineinsurance.com is the main page. And if shineinsurance.com/REI is where we sort of dig into the details.
All right. Love that. And so you just gave us a wonderful segue, because one of the things that I mentioned in the very beginning is, aside from the insurance, where you obviously are a specialist, you have a team of specialists and really with the areas of focus, but REI Clarity. So you have a wonderful podcast, which is fantastic. And once again, everyone, Going Long family, when you really want to learn, he's going to tell you a little bit more about it now. But it's a fantastic podcast. I've had a chance to be a guest there as well. Jeremy, I guess, you love the insurance thing, and you're really a specialist there, and you've got a fantastic team. So kind of, where did REI Clarity, where'd that come from, man? Help us understand it. How can people learn more about what you're doing over there?
So I love an author, and you're going to ask me a question later, and I'm going to bring up another one of his books. But this author is Jay Baer. And when I first started Shine Insurance, I was moving from being an elementary school teacher to insurance agent. I was moving from inherently being trusted with people's kids all day long to a business where you kind of wonder if the person's trying to scam you, right? And as I was navigating that, I was reading books about, marketing and business ownership and all those kinds of things, and just looking at what do I need to do to establish relationships with folks. And I read a book by Jay Baer called Utility. And the basic premise was, you need to go out and you need to decide who your ideal client is. Know that ideal customer avatar really, really well. And all marketing people talk about this, right? Really knowing who you're talking to. And then go out and do good things for that person. And they probably shouldn't have anything to do with your product that you're selling. Go do good things for people, provide value. And that was 8 years ago. And so ever since then, I've just been on that mission. It's like, okay, who is my ideal client? Who is the person that I want to work with, that I really feel like I want to team with? And how can I provide value to them? And this is my third podcast. Podcasting has been a place that I've really found to be able to provide value to my ideal customers. And R.E.I. Clarity is really all about that. We believe that there are 9 simple action steps that every single investor can take to succeed in real estate investing. And so we dig deep into those 9 action steps and talk with experts in the space like yourself about how they've taken those steps and succeeded on their journey.
Love that. And like I said, everybody in the Going Long family, check out R.E.I. Clarity. It's wonderful, wonderful podcast that Jeremy hosts. And yeah, you're just going to get a lot more value from him there as well. So one of the other things that I did want to I want to ask, because I know everybody's curious, like where are things, what does the world look like for you in 12 to 18 months from now, Jeremy? How's life? How's business? Talk to us.
Absolutely. Business, my business is at this point, I'm 8 years in. It's been a couple years now since I really focused on commercial real estate. And it's getting to this really neat place where scalability is happening. I think as any entrepreneur knows, you start from the beginning. It's just like you're wearing all the hats and you're doing the thing and you're chugging along and you're making it all happen. And then over the evolution of time, things start to scale. And the key to scalability is the ability to train other people on your standard operating procedures, to bring in great folks to help you do it, and to, I don't know if duplicate yourself is right, because really it's not that. It's finding people who are better than you and who do other things that you can't do as well. But you start to really grow that team. And a good scalable business succeeds at that, with all the bumps and bruises that come along with every business, no matter how successful it is. And we're really at this point where scalability is the big focus right now. We have 6 or 7 members of our team. We have multiple VAs and contractors. So probably between 10 and 13 people are really truly working on our business every single day. And that's where I'm at right now. So it's growing in my relationships with commercial real estate investors of all types, and growing the systems and processes underneath which my business is growing. And it's been a test of scalability in the last year or so. And I'm really happy to say that so far things are really, really good. And I feel great about it. As many bumps and bruises as there always are. When my wife and Mackenzie and I get together, we're always talking about things we could make better and make work, all those kinds of things. So the next 12 to, I don't know exactly the time frame you put, but
12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months. I really see some of those things that are in their scalability toddler stage becoming teenagers and really growing at a scale that I didn't even know was possible. Right. Well, I do know it's possible because I'm trying to get there, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I love what you're talking about, because a lot of that is where they say the growth comes just outside of comfort zone. Like that's where you start to see things happen. And as you start talking about being able to scale and do that in an efficient way, right? Because you're talking about building process, creating standard operating procedures, making sure that you're bringing on talented people that complement what you do, that are better at those things than you. And so then that creates the momentum for you as the leader to continue to point the way and then have everyone continue to move forward. So I guess probably one of the last questions before we get into the going long final three, Jeremy, is a lot of people are probably thinking, okay, well, I know Jeremy said that he lives in Indiana, and I know he says that he is focused on commercial real estate and other things, and of course go to Jeremy's website or in the show notes. But what's your coverage? Is it national? Is it Midwest? Is it Indiana? So kind of people can also know a bit more about where your practice is. The education that you provide is great for everyone, but also let people, if you can answer that question for everyone, I think it would be great.
Absolutely. So we are national. I'm capable of insuring folks all over the place. What I say is that when someone comes to us and wants to connect, we have a conversation on the front end. And what I'm looking for is whether we fit your team and whether you fit our model. Essentially, would I invest with you is the bottom line question. Yeah. When I'm talking with someone, would I invest with you? Do I believe in your model? Do we feel like we've got a vibe with each other? I can do insurance anywhere in the country, but I certainly don't want to say I'll do whatever. We're a boutique agency. We have, I don't brag about the large number of clients that I'm growing every single day. That's not what it's about. It's about growing those relationships, growing with the folks that really make the most sense. And, but the short answer to your question is we can do that all over the country. Yeah.
And this is also too, because as you help us to love insurance is also understanding, okay, is this something that just can happen potentially locally? Can happen just within the state? And so, and I love the way that you talk about that is really being able to service the entire nation at the same time, and very similar to as we're having conversations with potential investors. This potential investment opportunity is not just about the investor selecting us, it's also about us selecting the investor, because what you want to make sure is that your business is set up to best serve your client. And just like I quite frequently say that, there are three different kinds of restaurants you can go to. You can go to a fast food restaurant. You can go to one of what I think they call slow service nowadays, or fast service, like something like that. And then you have like a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Like all three of them serve food. The thing is it would be very, very weird to have your maitre d' welcoming you at the front door of McDonald's, or the McDonald's greeter welcome you for a 3-star Michelin dinner, right? Yeah. And so it's about being very clear on who are you going to serve, and then based on that, making sure that they want to serve you and you want to serve them. So
that you're clear. Yeah. That you're, and the restaurant thing is a great example because it's so easy to understand. Sometimes I say, we offer high-end dining experience, in the insurance world, we offer high-end product at a McDonald's price sometimes because it's just the way insurance often works. But I think that really makes a lot of sense. You've got to know what you do as a business owner and as an investor, and what other people are doing as well.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. Jeremy, I want to just keep talking to you forever, and I know that I get a chance to continue to connect Absolutely. With you offline. But everybody else, you know what? We got to get into the going long final three, man. And so the thing is, Jeremy, I never ask anybody the going long final three unless they tell me that they're ready for me to ask them. So, are you ready?
I'm 100% ready. Let's do it.
I knew you were. Here we go. So, look, we started with you over in the U.S. I want to bring it back this way now to Europe. So, what is your favorite European city, either that you have visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
There are so many European cities that are on my bucket list, and going and touring Europe is one of the big things I want to do. A place I have been is Corfu, and I absolutely love that island and would love to go back there. That's where I got engaged to my wife, spent some time on the beach hanging out there, and I would go back there in a New York minute. But as I've said to you before, Billy, one of the things I want to do is see a classical football game between Real Madrid and Barca. I would love to do that in Barcelona, and I would love to do that with you if it worked out. So that is a big piece of what I'm dreaming about and want to do sometime soon, hopefully.
Yeah, so I would love that. Definitely have you here, and I would prefer that it be here at the Camp Nou. And
Absolutely.
Just because I could show you around my town, man, my new town. So listen, so appreciate that. The next thing is I get a chance, just like you, meet really, really successful people all the time. And the common thread is that successful people typically make one mistake throughout their entire Okay. I always get that wrong. Maybe make a lot more mistakes than everybody else, like a lot of mistakes or learning opportunities or whatever you want to call them. But here's the thing. Everything is really about what do you learn at that moment in time. So if you could tell us, what is the one lesson that you would share with the Going Long family today?
It's easy. This one is easy for me. It is learning to take your ego out of the center of your decision-making process. I am so guilty of believing I'm the person with all the answers, of believing that my way is the way that makes the most sense, of just putting everything. If I framed that in a more positive way, it would be like putting everything on my shoulders and just believing in some way that I've got to be carrying the ship on my back, which I like the metaphor because you cannot carry a ship on your back. And I think so much of that has to do with ego and the belief that you are the center of things. And that's a huge mistake I've made over and over and still make plenty of times. I think when you shift from that to say, who is the center of things? How can I bring together a team? I am the coach. I am the bringer together of success. Was a terrible sentence, but we'll go with it.
Completely understood you.
Absolutely.
You're good. We completely understood you. And what it makes me think of is as a coach, but even takes me back to your days of being the goaltender, right? And being able to see what's happening and at the same time recognizing that make decisions based on what you're actually seeing more than what you're feeling. And I think that makes a lot of sense as you talked about the ego thing. And I know it's something that a lot of us can relate to. So thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah. And that brings us to the third of the Going Long Final Three, which means it's the last question of the day. We always love to fill our brains here, Jeremy. So help us understand, what book would you recommend to the Going Long family?
So I'm going to come back to my favorite author, Jay Baer. He's actually lives in the same town as me. We're friends. And he has another book called Hug Your Haters. This is about marketing. It's not about real estate investing or anything like that. And it's basically the premise is that if you can get to the point in whatever work you're doing where people don't like you, or people feel you've failed them, or feel you've said something that put them out of your center circle, you need to learn more about who that person is, why they feel that way, and love the fact that you have someone who's hating on you. It's actually a really good sign. And if you learn from the people that are coming from that perspective, you can learn more about yourself and involve yourself in a way that makes the most sense. So Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer, a great book, as are all of his books.
Perfect. Jay Baer's Hug Your Haters. Love that, man. Wow. Just awesomeness, like pure awesomeness. Like, if I think about just from the very beginning of our conversation and thinking about you even just talking about just high level, like you getting started at 14 and then really spending a lot of time, those 13 years in terms of teaching. And the thing that really comes across, and this is what I'm feeling, and I know what so many of the Going Long family are feeling, is really having a better understanding of insurance, its role in helping us to really love insurance, right? And because we're more educated and we can understand and we have better questions to ask and we know what an umbrella policy is and why it's there, and also what are the things that we should look for as we look to engage with this newest member of our team, whether we're active investor or a passive investor, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have done so much to help us today. And I know that there's so many people, Jeremy, that are like, I got to get in touch with Jeremy. Give me his phone number. Repeat that website. Help us understand, like, what is the best way for the Going Long family to get in touch with you and your team?
Absolutely. Well, the website is shineinsurance.com. The podcast is REIClarity.com. And obviously I'm all over social. LinkedIn is a big place I hang out, but all the different social spaces, you can find me their way. I'm happy to engage and connect with you.
All right. Fantastic. So love that. So shineinsurance.com and also be able to, the one thing R.E.I. Clarity you mentioned, and also too, one of the things I would ask, because Jeremy is extremely active. He's already talked about how he is continuing to share ideas, engage with people. When you reach out to Jeremy on LinkedIn, just let him know that you listened to him here or you watched him here, so that he has that level of connection to know that, hey, listen, you were on the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels. And so, yeah, I'm reaching out to you. So I think that would be, or I know that would be very, very helpful for Jeremy and also for the entire Going Long family. So Jeremy, I just want to thank you, man, from the bottom of my heart for investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family today, man. It's been really, really awesome. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, Billy. I am so excited to get to know you, to grow with you, to take our journeys in places we had no idea they would go, and to celebrate that over time. So thanks for having me on.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. And so just a really couple quick words to the Going Long family, Jeremy. Listen, everybody in the Going Long family, you've just received so much great education and understanding, and with Jeremy sharing his experiences, you have a unique opportunity today. Go out and share today's episode with at least 2 to 3 other people, right? Be that positive impact on someone else's life. And then at the same time, you have an opportunity to also share your feedback. I'd love a very honest review of what you thought about today's conversation, what you think about the podcast. I go through every single one of these reviews, and it's something that's very, very important. So take just a couple seconds, leave your honest review, and we're going to continue to have great guests like Jeremy on the show, and we're going to continue to change things to give you exactly what it is that you're looking for. So until then, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation, and I want you to go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.